Well, struggling to find a place to look. But hey, my token bead. I haven't said that in a while. Yeah, this one's different. Olivella bead. You can see it's been like cut in half. And a lot of these, they filled them up sometimes with asphaltum, but they were, for the most part, decorative, and they were attached to something. Anyway, that's kind of cool. Over the years, just have a handful of these guys. Anyways, don't expect much today, but we'll see. Well, there's my results from one day's worth. Sure didn't knock them dead. There's that bead slash, I don't think it was really a bead. I think it was more ornamental, and I'll explain in a minute. There's my best chipstone, little bladey looking thing. So I was content, you know, hey. Well, if you've watched me long enough, you've seen me find many token beads over the years, and they various shells were used, and the most common one was the olivella shell, and they come in off the west coast. In fact, you can still find them, you know, unused in several places. You can pick them up by the dozens. But anyways, so these were brought in, and to make this the simplest form of the olivella bead was to just grind the top of it off, and it became a bead. And the next phase, or one of the phases, and with the beads, and I've explained this on a few videos, it was currency to them, and the more beads they had, the wealthier they were. And the more effort that went into a bead, the more value that it had. And the one I just showed you, the whole olivella, that was really easy to make, so didn't have a lot of value. This was the next stage where they split the olivella bead or shell in half, and then just punched a simple hole in it. And some of the olivellas, they drilled a hole, which made it a little harder. And then what I found yesterday, I set out there. Yeah, again, this is an olivella shell that's been split, and I only have a handful of these, and I don't think this was technically used as a bead. I think it was more as a decoration to adhese to whatever they wanted to stick it to. And I've only found a handful of them, and there's all of them that I found over the years. And some of them, this one, that one right there, that blackish material in there, that's asphaltum, and it's kind of a sticky, tarry. Anyways, that was they filled the cavity with asphaltum, and adhered it or fixed it to whatever they're looking for. Here's another olivella shell that's been split, like the ones I just showed you. And this one also has asphaltum. And an extra little bonus that this one has, that pattern has been incised on the shell, and just to create a little effect. But that these are just extremely rare. I only have a couple of them. Those are just straight lines. Let's see, I think it's this one here. I don't know if it's going to show up, but you can see there's little diamonds toward the rim of it. If this camera's making it out, and it goes all the way around and also on the other side of it. I just can't imagine just making that. I mean, I can barely see it, let alone putting that pattern on there. Here's another split olivella, and this is the only one that I have. It actually has 2 holes drilled in it, and it reminds me of a button. So who knows, maybe early influence from, you know, Europe and the rest of the world. You know, they saw buttons and thought, hey, we can make our own buttons. Well, now that I showed you the many uses of the olivella shell as a bead, as decorative, whatever. Anyways, I guess I'll keep on rolling and show you some of these other beads that I found, and it's taken me a while, many years, to, you know, find one here and an unusual one there, and, you know, come up with the total picture of the whole. You know, mainly shells that were traded in and turned into many different forms of expression. This one here, and I'll show you in a second here. This is a limpet shell, and like the olivella shell, these are still found along the coast, and you can find, you know, you can pick them up just by the bucketful. But again, they were traded in, you know, like that. I'm not sure if that was intentional and they were doing something with it. But I only have just, I don't know, just a handful of those that are in the unfinished state. And then they refined them down to these things. And I'm not sure exactly how they were used, but they just ground the dome off the top of it. And I do know they refined them a little more, and these kind of make sense. They're kind of self-explanatory, at least for me. I think these were earrings. Nice little hoop. Put a couple little grooves in there. Pretty cool bling. Yeah, those are, I only have 2 or 3 that have the little thing on top there. Another, well, at least for me, a rare example of another shell that was used. Actually, this is a cowry shell, and it's pretty much found worldwide, and in many cultures, it's used as a sign of both wealth and I think the main one is for the female fertility. But I'm not sure about that, at least from a male's point of view. That looks a little angry to me, but anyways, I guess I'll leave it at that. Anyways, I found this one years ago, and I really didn't think much of it. And this was the first one that you know, to me, that I found it. And then I had a visit with my sister, and she was actually wearing this as a necklace with just, one, with the, anyways. And I said, oh, and then she told me, she bought it at some, and hers was a reproduction. She bought it at some store, anyways. So that kind of floored me, and then I did some research on it and thought, wow, man, that's pretty cool. And hers was identical to this one, where the back of it had been taken off. And when I found this one, I thought it was busted. Didn't really have a clue. Knew it was cool, but since I learned the meaning behind them, it's like, wow. Here's a little part of another one. It's only partially there. And then a few minutes ago, I actually had kind of a light bulb moment, and I didn't realize. To see where they at. Slow this down a little bit. And I just noticed this, and I thought, my goodness, you know, okay, this has been punched, and I had no clue up until just a few minutes ago that this is a small, complete cowrie shell. And to show you a size comparison, I mean, that one was huge. And let's see, and I only have maybe 3 or 4 of them. That one's been a little damaged. And here's another one. And these small ones, you know, they punched a little hole in it, so I guess they wore it as a bead. But hey, I'm always learning something. Again, I can't believe it just dawned on me as I picked these little guys up and looked at them close. It's like, wow, that's a cowrie shell. Well, a couple more minor players in the overall trading shells inland to turn them into an array of beads, pendants, tools. Anyways, I'm not sure, I don't even know the name of this, some type of snail shell. And I've only found 3 of them, and I'm guessing they punched it out a little bit, instant little pendant type thing, or centerpiece up for a necklace. Oh, and the other one is, and again, I just have so few artifacts made from scallop shell, and it's, I guess, scallop shell is similar to the clamshell. I think they're smaller, you know, and they've got that natural ridges on them. But I'm guessing this one was supposed to be a pendant. And what's odd about this guy, they started a hole there on the side, and I don't know, something failed, and then they got it more in the middle, and they shaped this thing, and neat little pendant. And again, I just have here's one here. Again, I think they were turning that into a pendant type thing, and something happened. And then, I found this not too long ago. I got this on video, and I picked it up, and yeah, I knew it was scallop shell, and I didn't realize until I got it home that they were trying to drill it. For some reason, didn't complete it. I think this, more than likely, my guess, is one of those fire starter things. Another major player in the overall shells turned into ornaments, beads, / just decorative, was the Dentaliun shell. And these little guys are tiny, and you can see them in my hand. There's 3 of them. And the cool thing about these, and it was another light bulb moment, and it wasn't too long ago that, here I found hundreds, probably, numbers in, maybe in the low thousands. Anyways, they were so very tiny. And I always wondered, how the heck did they manage to drill that hole? I mean, it would be impossible. I mean, I can barely see the hole in the center with my naked eye, but yet, they're drilled. What I thought years ago. And it wasn't until, I don't know, not that long ago, maybe within the last 3 or 4 years, it just kind of struck me that, I'll show you here in a second. Yeah, there's a place, it was probably 10, 15 years ago, that, it's an area where I found several beads, and I started finding little segments of these guys. There's one there. Oh, there's a couple of them together there. Anyways, it kind of struck me, you know, I was finding these long tubular segments, you know, in addition to these tiny little finished beads. And it was one of those hourglass moments. It's like, wait, those were never drilled. They were cut. And this is a Dentaliun shell. And this is a segment of it. And I think they varied in sizes, and I think they were kind of fairly long, you know, maybe a couple 3 inches long, maybe even bigger. I'm not quite sure, but again, they occur on the West Coast and found in large numbers, and I'm not sure as far as the rest of the world, you know, but anyways, so it occurred to me, it's like, wow, those were never drilled. They were actually cut out of this tubular piece of a shell and fashioned into a bead. And I've got some other, well, and again, I'm not quite sure. You know, that these were always kind of a mystery. And initially, I kind of thought they were clamshell, but I'm not quite sure. You know, well, actually, that's not a very good representation of what I was trying to explain. Yeah, let's see here. Oh, here's a good example of. See that little tiny hole? That's a natural hole that occurs in the Dentaliun shell. And I found a couple of these years ago and thought, wow, that's pretty cool. But it took me a while, and well, another major player that I'll explain in a minute in the whole overall scheme of shells that were somehow, they obviously occur naturally on the coast, the West Coast, and traded inland and turned into just a whole plethora of beads and ornaments and so many unanswered questions. Well, the reason I just said that, you know, I have a little confusion on what I find. You know, as you know, someone who's spent a good part of their adulthood looking, finding, trying to figure out, you know, what you found. The last holy grail, I'd call it a holy grail, you know, they're clamshells and how they so utilized the clamshell. But what I was talking about with the Dentaliun, you know, it's a natural shell that has a hole in the center of it. I showed you some examples, and I'm not quite sure if the Dentaliun, you know, had a thicker part, you know, that wasn't quite drilled, you know, a natural hole all the way through it, and just a real oddball mix of artifacts are these guys. And I'm not quite sure if they're Dentaliun or clamshell, which I'll show you some you know, some obvious examples of drilled clamshell. Anyway, these guys, you know, I have no idea. It's shell. They obviously drilled that. And again, I'm not quite sure if the Dentaliun you know, at one end was solid, didn't have a natural hole in it, but those two holes were drilled, and that's just an incredible artifact. But again, I'm not quite sure if that's clamshell or Dentaliun. And there's several examples. Again, I'm not sure. Well, maybe this one was Dentaliun. It kind of had a natural hole in it, but they expanded the natural hole, made it a little wider. This little thing, and again, I'm not quite sure. You can kind of see that channel right in there. You know, it's natural, right in there. But the ends were drilled. Nothing was drilled downward. Somehow came out on the side of it. Same with this end. And this is just such an intriguing artifact. But again, I'm not quite sure. Clamshell or Dentaliun. Well, just a couple of more examples that I've been fortunate enough to find over the years. You know, whether it's Dentaliun versus clam versus, I'm not quite sure, but just have to share them with you guys. Anyway, this is one that I found several years ago, and you know, there's expansion of maybe something that was natural, you know, all the way through, but I don't think so. That one that I showed you right there, obviously that one didn't go all the way through naturally, and same with this one here. And they were trying at both ends, and the ends were not meeting, and I think they compromised, and you know, some could say, oh, that's damage, but no, I think that's just a way of how somehow the two ends met in the middle. And one last one, and again, Dentaliun. You know, I kind of lead. You know, I think these are Dentaliun shells that, again, for whatever reason, I don't know that there's part of the shell that doesn't have the natural drill or the hole in the center of it. But this one is just exquisite. I mean, not only did they both holes met in the middle, but again, I'm not sure if there was a natural hole in there, but they shaped this thing, polished it to as fine as a bead could be. And the last group will be the well sought after clamshell, so versatile in its use, and again, fortunate enough to find my share of them, and all the mysteries behind them. Well, here's the last shell that's turned into a bead, and many other things that you can somehow make from, you know, a shell that's fairly large, and you can do a number of things with them. But from where I find these, obviously their main use was to turn into a bead. This one's kind of chewed up a little bit, obviously drilled, and over the years I've certainly found my share of them, and they're found in pretty large numbers. There's one there. I'm not sure if they were doing something to that the edge of that thing if they were incising it somehow. But they are a very, very cool artifact to find. And the one I found several years ago, and I actually got it on video. I'm not sure what the name of the video is. Anyways, again, they did an assortment of detailing these things, and this one here, you know, it's similar to that last one I just showed you, but they actually, instead of some of the beads I showed you earlier where they incised, you know, the surface of the shell, this one actually has a relief in it, you know. I mean, I just can't imagine doing that. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, if you pay attention to history, you know, what the rest of the world did with stone, and, you know, the reliefs of, you know, from marble with the Greeks and the Romans, and but, you know, hey, these guys were living a much simpler life, hunters and gatherers, but managing to rise above, you know, just that, but, you know, to come up with a form of representation of not just surviving, but hey, I'm an artist, and to incorporate that into their daily lives. But again, this is probably my top one favorite bead of 40 years of looking and picking them up one by one, and I'm not sure what this represents, but there's a whole lot going on that thing. I mean, it didn't build pyramids or statues, but it certainly made a statement. Simple clamshell. And over the years, you know, just besides the ordinary clamshell, which, you know, hey, that was effort, that was money, that was valuable. And not just turning the clamshell into beads, which this is the top side of a piece of clamshell, and I can't imagine what this looked like. And it's, you know, and this is just a fragment. And when I first found this, I thought, what the heck? What are all those dots? And those are obviously little tiny drilled dots. And I don't know if there was a scene on the, you know, on the, again, just a small fragment of whatever it was, but definitely intentional. And the only reason I can say that, because I found another one in the same area, and you can't quite see the dots there as well. And this is on the top side of it. The one I just showed you was on the underside, but the same repeated little dot thing. Maybe one of these days I'll find a whole clamshell that has a picture of a representation of, we'll see. To be announced. Yeah, here's a few of artifacts that, you know, started off as a clamshell and were turned into little pieces of bling, you know. Is that a pendant? Probably. Same with that one. That one didn't quite make it to the finished product. There's the only one that I've ever found. You know, obviously it's, you know, kind of similar to that olivella shell that I showed you earlier, but this is much bigger. You know, I don't know if they were trying to represent, you know, a button kind of thing. I don't know. But it was certainly versatile and And I've just, you know, I found my share of just the regular clamshell that was turned into a bead, but again, what I said earlier about the overall picture of the clamshell and how it was just so utilized, and actually that's scallop. Anyways, it was so utilized into many different forms and shapes, and but again, you know, overall, it was certainly decorative. Well, I'll wind down this probably longer than it should be video of overall discussion of what I've been fortunate enough to find where I'm at over the years, 40 years plus of looking, gathering. I showed this necklace I put together of both clamshell beads and steatite beads. And I finally found enough of them to make a necklace out of these last three. You know, what I said earlier, they're probably Dentaliun, but makes for a fine necklace, and I'm proud of that one.